Hey friends. Something hit me today about, it's a thing that happens to me occasionally when I am actually sort of in a flow, maybe not a flow state, but a kind of a forward momentum state. And it usually happens to me when I'm in a state of that feels like positive momentum. And there's kind of a number of ways to look at this. I'll describe it, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about what I think is going on. But basically, I had a meeting today, ran a meeting, and I used a metaphor to describe my team. And the metaphor that I used came out of a Duffer Brothers masterclass video series, a masterclass class that I did a few months ago, and where they talk about the writer's room. The Duffer Brothers are the twin brothers, film screenwriters who wrote Stranger Things, wrote and directed Stranger Things. They're still writing and directing Stranger Things, but they've also had a handful of other projects that are out there. They're fantastic creators, and they're really, really great, as I learned during this class, they're really great teachers of their process. It was just super smart how they talked about writing, how they talked about creating the whole process. And so the bit that I quoted today was where they were talking about the writer's room and the different personalities you need in the writer's room in order to make a good creative team. They were talking about there's a type of person that's just endlessly prolific with ideas. They're going to spit out idea after idea after idea. That's their thing. And a lot of the ideas might be bad. But you need someone to do that because, first of all, especially if they're good, a certain small percentage of those ideas will be great, will be good and or great, and the people surrounding can pick up on that. And then as you may be anticipating, you also need an editor. You need someone who's going to listen and sort of say no sensitively and constructively say no to a lot of ideas, not obviously out of some kind of competitive ego sense, but just out of having a sense of where to stop the direction of travel because it's not a productive direction, and that it's a way of staying on course. You also need an architect, someone who thinks in the big picture and can take these ideas. A lot of times, I'm familiar with this from the creative process, ideas can get thrown out that are completely out of sequence. There's nothing about the creative process that honors the chronology of the piece you're writing. I have ideas constantly. Even if I'm writing chapter 3, I'll have a flash about chapter 17, and then I'll have a flash about, I'm talking in chapters as though I've written a book. I've never written a book, but like scenes in a screenplay or a stage play, I'll be tinkering with one little bit in an early scene, and I'll have a flash about the ending, or I'll have a flash about the very beginning. That, and especially early on in the process, before the thing is too fully formed, that stuff comes out just wherever and all over the place. And you need someone who is good at grabbing it and identifying where those things go, seeing the value of each thing, and also seeing what each thing requires in order to be able to stand up, and therefore what the kind of structure needs to be. They go on. I think they identify a couple of other personality types, kind of creative types that I can't remember right now. But anyway, the point is, they make a really I think strong and compelling case for having different personalities on the team. and being conscious of what the strengths and the sort of contributions of each personality type, creative type are. I use this to sort of talk about our team, which has nothing to do with screenwriting, but it's still totally apt in the sense that I had started identifying people on the team doing these jobs, myself included. I was kind of like, becoming conscious of what it is that I do. But when I started the metaphor, I said, instead of describing it, the kind of prolific idea generator, the way I just did, I described them as someone who just spits out horrible ideas ad nauseum. And every once in a while, but you need someone to do that because every once in a while they're going to spit out a great idea. But I used that language. And at the time, it didn't even dawn on me. I didn't even notice that I'd used that language. But I thought about it later, and I was like, why did I use that language? I framed the spirit in which I intended it at the time, and the way in which it came out of me was sort of intended to be tongue-in-cheek or a bit, the negative connotation of the way I said it was intended to be sort of playful. It's intended to be a joke. But then in reflecting on that, I was like, I wasn't talking about myself. I was talking about someone playing that role, and the person on the team who plays that role is not me. So I was framing in the negative a vital role that I have deep appreciation for, but why? So why did I describe it in that way? Why didn't I describe it more the way I did just now? Which is a kind of much more neutral and not judgmental way of describing that role. So anyway, I thought about this, and so sneak preview, I don't actually have the answer to that. I don't actually know why I did that. But I've been speculating. I mean, on the kind of most obvious level, it's like, I was thinking about producing an effect in the people listening to me. I wasn't thinking about my statement as a reflection of someone's actual contribution. So the way it came out was just not very. It didn't really honor that. It didn't really contain. It didn't really signal the level of appreciation that I have for that role, and in the case of our team, that person. And I'm like, why? It's the kind of thing where you do that. And again, this is like it. Just to be clear, this did not create a hiccup. I did not know nothing. We moved past it quickly, and we didn't. It didn't even faze anybody. This didn't even dawn on me until after the event was over. So it wasn't something that I think had a negative impact. I hope, and maybe it's worth clarifying with the person. Mental note. But the more important, or at least the lesson that's present for me right now, is to just be really conscious of where my focus is when I'm speaking to a group, speaking to an audience, speaking to an individual. Really to kind of be awake and sensitive. Sensitive, sensitive, sensitive. Sensitivity, sensitivity, sensitivity. Be conscious, be listening, be feeling, be genuinely awake to what I'm saying, sensitive to my own language, sensitive to the room, because I don't want to frame things in the negative when I don't have, when that's not what I mean. There may be times that I want to say something negative about somebody, but I'll be transparent about that. Like I'll be clear, and I'll not be hiding it. It won't be a joke. That it won't be an accidental statement arising out of my desire to be funny or make something seem playful. So anyway, this feels like a very granular example, and it's, like I said, it's not something that I believe caused any offense, and yet I've noticed that over the course of the day since then, it has not sat well with me. I've kept coming back to it and going, why did I say it that way? Why would I do that? Didn't I have any alternatives? Didn't I have some better ways of dealing with this? Of describing this? And furthermore, don't I have the sensitivity to be wakeful? Because the other thing I noticed was that then, during the meeting, I didn't do my portion of the job. I did my portion of the job quite well. But there were aspects of the kind of editing process where, I had described someone who just spouts horrible ideas, as I said, which is not how I think of it and not what I meant to say, although it is what I said. I consider myself more in the architect-editor camp. That's true of me in most creative contexts. Although I've played that other role a handful of times, and I can go into that mode under certain circumstances, but by and large, I'm more in the editor-architect camp, but I didn't actually exercise my full role. There was editing, again, in retrospect, and sort of in the moment, but in retrospect, in the moment I knew it needed, I wished that it was being done, but I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know how to activate the function within myself. And I'm not even sure that I understood that I was meant to activate the function until after the event. And I was like, oh, that was a job I just didn't do. I should have done that job. And I think, my inaccurate and somewhat dismissive description of someone else's job actually planted the seeds for me to not really connect with what I was saying, and therefore not ultimately kind of understand in real time, in the moment, this is my job. There's a part of this job that I need to do right now. And I missed that because I was not, I think, in other words, my description of the other person's job sort of becomes a symptom of a larger unconsciousness. And that's why I'm kind of dwelling on it. That's why I think it has come back to me again and again. That's why I'm talking about it now, because because it's something I didn't want this day to go by without me noticing it, and I wanted to be able to come back and at least retrospectively see what happened, kind of understand what happened, and hopefully fix what happened. But sensitivity, there's nothing like it. There's nothing more important when it comes to, if we want to do conscious work, gotta be awake. Gotta be paying attention. Even when our mouth says words like that, that is our mind, that is our subconscious sending up a flare. Want to be ready to listen to that. Pay attention. So that's where I'm at today, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. See you soon.